Hello everyone, welcome back to Framerate Factory where every frame matters. Today we're testing 007 First Light on the RTX 3070 Ti. 007 First Light is one of the most anticipated action games of the year, giving players a fresh look at the early days of James Bond before he earned his 007 status. Powered by IO Interactive's Glacier engine, the game features stunning visuals, detailed environments, and excellent lighting, making it a great showcase for modern graphics cards. In this video, we'll be testing every available graphics preset at both 1080p and 1440p to see exactly how the RTX 3070 Ti performs. So without wasting any more time, let's jump straight into the benchmarks. Let's start with a low preset at 1080p using native resolution. Right away, we're getting between 70 and 80 FPS. Performance here is limited slightly by the CPU due to the large number of NPCs in this area. But overall, the gameplay remains very consistent, and the RTX 3070 Ti handles these settings with ease. And I also want to mention that every benchmark in this video is recorded in Chapter 4. After completing the entire game, I can confidently say this is one of the most demanding chapters you'll encounter. Apart from a few very short sections later in the game, this area delivers the lowest FPS you'll see. So if your performance looks good here, you can expect even higher frame rates throughout the rest of the game. Instead of testing the medium and high presets at 1080p, we're going to skip straight to the ultra preset. That's because the performance scaling between each graphics preset isn't very significant, so it doesn't really make much sense to benchmark every single one. Here we're running the Ultra preset with DLSS set to quality mode, and the performance is still excellent while maintaining outstanding image quality. Throughout this benchmark, FPS stays between 60 and 70 frames per second for most of the gameplay, occasionally climbing into the mid-70s depending on the scene. More importantly, we're consistently staying above 60 frames per second, making the overall experience feel very smooth. Frame time is also extremely stable, with no noticeable spikes or stutters. At 1080p, you can absolutely max out this game on the RTX 3070 Ti and enjoy a smooth, visually impressive experience without any compromises. Now let's move on to 1440p, starting with a low preset. Interestingly, we're seeing very similar performance to 1080p, and in some areas we're even getting slightly higher FPS. That's because we're now making much better use of the GPU, while the CPU is no longer the main limiting factor. We're also benchmarking in a more secluded section of the game, so the heavy CPU bottleneck caused by large crowds is no longer present. Performance generally stays between 60 and 80 frames per second, depending on the area, making the gameplay feel consistently smooth and highly playable. What's even more impressive is how good the game looks at 1440p. Even on the low preset, the image quality is absolutely beautiful, with detailed environments and excellent lighting that make it hard to believe you're not running much higher settings. Moving on to the medium preset at 1440p, this is the setting I personally think offers the best balance between visual quality and performance in the entire game. Performance generally stays between 60 and 70 frames per second, although in heavier scenes, especially when there are a lot of smoke particles on screen, FPS can occasionally dip into the low to mid-50s. If you want to stay above 60 frames per second at all times, I'd recommend enabling DLSS. That said, the frame pacing in this game is excellent, so even when performance briefly drops into the 50s, it's very difficult to notice unless you're actively watching the FPS counter. This is also the setting I recommend for most players. In my opinion, the game looks about 95% as good as the Ultra preset while offering noticeably better performance. Interestingly, moving from medium to high provides almost no meaningful visual improvement. I honestly wouldn't recommend using the high preset, as the performance cost simply isn't worth it. If you're planning to push the graphics beyond medium, I'd skip high altogether and go straight to ultra, since that's the only preset that offers a noticeable improvement in visual quality. Finally, we're moving on to the Ultra preset at 1440p. For this benchmark, I'm using DLSS Set 2 Quality Mode, because without DLSS, performance drops below 30 frames per second, making the game difficult to enjoy. With DLSS enabled, we're now getting between the low 40s and the mid 50s depending on the scene. Personally, I wouldn't recommend playing at these settings on the RTX 3070 Ti. While the visuals are undeniably impressive, the performance simply isn't consistent enough to justify the extra graphical fidelity. That being said, it's worth remembering that the RTX 3070 Ti is now a 5 years old graphics card, and it's still capable of delivering a very respectable 1440p gaming experience in modern 2026 titles, especially when paired with upscaling technologies like DLSS. The other limitation is its 8 GB of VRAM. At 1440p, many newer games are beginning to push past that limit, so lowering texture quality is becoming increasingly necessary to avoid excessive VRAM usage and maintain smooth performance. So that wraps up our benchmark. Overall, I'd recommend playing 007 First Light at 1440p using the medium preset. In my opinion, it offers the best balance between visual quality and performance, allowing you to enjoy a smooth experience without sacrificing much in terms of graphics. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps support Framerate Factory and keeps me motivated to bring you more benchmarks, graphics comparisons, and optimization guides. The next video is going to be especially exciting for those of you with older GTX graphics cards. We'll be taking a look at Black Myth Wukong using 4x multi-frame generation to see just how much extra performance we can squeeze out of lower-end hardware. So make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.